Night shifts change places. Familiar locations become unsettling, silence grows heavier, and every sound feels closer than it should. For those who work overnight, loneliness becomes routine, but sometimes loneliness isn't real. Sometimes someone is watching. This is the true story of a gas station night shift worker whose quiet job turned into a waking nightmare, a story that still haunts him every time a phone rings after midnight. I was 22 when I took the night shift job at the gas station. I needed money badly, and the pay was better than anything else I could find. The station sat just off a 2-lane highway, miles away from the nearest town. During the day, it looked normal enough. At night, it felt like the end of the world. The building was small, 2 gas pumps out front, a flickering street light, and a convenience store barely bigger than a living room. On 3 sides, thick woods pressed in close, swallowing sound and light. Once the sun went down, the darkness felt alive. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. At midnight, I locked the doors and served customers through a narrow sliding window. The owner said it was for safety. There'd been robberies years ago, but he brushed it off like nothing serious ever happened anymore. Most nights were painfully quiet. A few truckers, maybe a drunk driver stopping for cigarettes. Long stretches where the only sound was the hum of the refrigerators and the buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. I hated the phone the most. It sat behind the counter, old and beige, with a cord that was always twisted. Nobody ever called during the night, not once in my first 3 weeks, until the night everything went wrong. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were the slowest. No traffic, no customers after 1 a.m. I was halfway through a terrible cup of coffee when the phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a scream. I jumped so hard I spilled coffee all over the counter. My heart was already racing as I stared at the phone, ringing again and again. I told myself it was probably a trucker or someone lost. I picked it up. "Hello? This is the gas station." Nothing. Just breathing. Slow, deep, wet. It sounded like someone holding the phone too close to their mouth. I pulled the receiver away from my ear, staring at it like it might bite me. "Hello?" I said again. The breathing stopped. Then a man whispered, so quietly I almost missed it. "I can see you." My stomach dropped. I laughed, forcing it to sound casual. "Real funny, you got the wrong number." The line went dead. I stood there for a long time, staring at the phone. My reflection stared back at me from the dark window, pale, wide-eyed, already afraid. I told myself it was a prank. I was wrong. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. It rang until the sound felt like it was drilling into my skull. Finally, I picked it up and snapped, "What do you want?" The same voice. "You didn't look behind the coolers." Every hair on my body stood up. The coolers were against the back wall, right behind me. I turned slowly, heart pounding so hard it felt painful. The glass doors reflected only my own terrified face and the rows of soda bottles behind me. "I'm calling the police," I said. The man chuckled. "Too late." The line went dead again. I checked every camera, outside, pumps, parking lot, trees, nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was just out of sight, watching, waiting. At 3 a.m., the store felt different. The air felt thick. The lights seemed dimmer. Every small noise, every creak, every pop from the coolers made me flinch. Then I heard footsteps. Outside, slow, crunching gravel. They didn't approach the window. They circled the building. On the security monitor, I finally saw him. A tall figure standing just beyond the reach of the streetlight. His face was hidden in shadow, but I knew he was staring directly at me. Then he raised his hand and waved. I ran to the bathroom and locked myself inside, shaking so badly I could barely dial 911. I whispered into the phone, terrified he could hear me. Police arrived 20 minutes later. The man was gone. They searched the woods. Nothing. When my manager came in the next morning, we checked the phone records. There were no incoming calls logged during my shift. None. I quit that morning. Sometimes the scariest part of the night isn't being alone, it's realizing you never were. You've been watching Mr. Horror Man. If this true night shift horror story creeped you out, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And remember, when the phone rings in the middle of the night, you might not want to answer. The hospital room that wasn't empty. Hospitals are never truly quiet. Even in the middle of the night, there is always the soft hum of machines, distant footsteps in long hallways, and the occasional echo of a call bell. For night shift workers, these sounds fade into the background. You learn to ignore them. But sometimes, the sounds aren't machines. Sometimes, the room you know is empty isn't. This is the true story of a night shift nurse and the hospital room that refused to stay vacant. I had been working night shifts for nearly 3 years when it happened. I was used to exhaustion, silence, and the strange things that come with working while the rest of the world sleeps. Night shifts were calmer, fewer doctors, fewer visitors, just dim lights and long, quiet hours. The hospital I worked in was old, built in the early 1900s and renovated countless times. Some wings still felt untouched by time. Narrow hallways, high ceilings, rooms that always felt colder than the rest. One room in particular stood out, room 317. It had been empty for months, not because the hospital was full, far from it. Room 317 was avoided. Patients transferred out within hours. Some refused to stay the night. Others begged to be moved after dark. They all said the same thing. Someone stood at the foot of the bed. The first time I heard about room 317, I laughed it off. Hospitals attract ghost stories the way moths are drawn to light. Sick people, stress, medication, fear. It made sense. But the stories kept coming. A man claimed someone whispered his name all night. A woman said the bathroom door kept opening on its own. Another patient screamed at 2 a.m., insisting a nurse who didn't exist kept checking her vitals. Security chalked it up to anxiety. Administration stopped assigning patients to the room. Room 317 became storage. One Tuesday night, I was working alone on my floor. Staffing was short, as usual. Around 3 a.m., when the hospital felt like it was holding its breath, I noticed something strange. The call light for room 317 was on. My stomach dropped. I stared at the light glowing softly above the doorway. It hadn't been used in months. No bed, no patient, no reason for it to activate. I told myself it was a wiring issue. Still, I grabbed my clipboard and walked down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I opened the door, the temperature dropped instantly. The room was dark, lit only by the glow of the call light. The air felt thick, stale, and cold, unnaturally cold. And the mattress was indented, as if someone were sitting on it. I froze in the doorway, my heart pounding in my ears. The indentation was deep, unmistakable, a human shape, legs hanging off the side. Then I heard it, a whisper, barely audible. "Help me." The sound came from the corner of the room. I couldn't move. The whisper came again, closer this time. "I can't leave." The call light flickered. I backed out of the room and slammed the door shut, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my radio. I called security immediately. When they arrived, the room was normal. No indentation, no cold air, no call light. They exchanged looks and told me I was overtired. I wasn't convinced. An hour later, chaos broke out 2 rooms down. A patient was screaming. I rushed in to find an elderly woman sobbing uncontrollably, pointing at the hallway. "She came from the empty room," she cried. "She says she died here." My blood ran cold. The next morning, I asked an older nurse about room 317. She went quiet. Then she told me the truth. Years ago, a young woman had died alone in that room after repeatedly using the call light. It malfunctioned. No one came. By the time she was found, it was too late. Her chart was lost. Her room was sealed. But the call light still works. Room 317 was permanently closed the following week. I transferred to day shift soon after. Sometimes when I work late, I still hear a call bell coming from an empty hallway. Hospitals are full of people who never leave, and some rooms refuse to forget them. You've been watching Mr. Horror Man. If this true hospital night shift horror story sent chills down your spine, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And remember, if a call light turns on in an empty room, don't answer it. Night security jobs are supposed to be the easiest money you can make. Empty buildings, long hours, nothing but silence, cameras, and time to kill. That's what everyone tells you. Nothing ever happens during the night shift. But empty buildings aren't empty, and silence is never truly silent. This is the true story of a night security guard who discovered that some reflections don't belong to you, and that once something learns your face, it may never let you go. I took the job because I was desperate, fresh out of college, bills piling up, no real prospects. A security company was hiring night guards to watch over abandoned properties, and they didn't ask many questions. No experience required, just stay awake, walk the floors, and log anything unusual. They assigned me to an old corporate office building on the edge of the city, 12 floors of concrete, glass, and forgotten ambition. The company that owned it had gone bankrupt almost overnight, leaving behind offices frozen in time, desks still cluttered with paperwork, coffee cups dried solid, calendars stuck on dates from years ago. During the day, the building looked sad. At night, it felt wrong. My shift ran from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Every night followed the same routine. Sign in at the security desk, check the cameras, ride the elevator to the top floor, walk down floor by floor, checking doors and motion sensors. The building made noises constantly, pipes knocking, distant creaks, the groan of the elevator cables. I learned quickly that if you reacted to every sound, you'd go insane. By my second week, boredom set in. That's when I noticed the alerts. Every night at exactly 3:33 a.m., the motion sensor on the 10th floor triggered. Not once or twice. Every night. Always the same time. At first, I ignored it. Old building, faulty wiring, cheap equipment. That's what I told myself. But the cameras never showed anything. No movement, no shadow, no flicker of light. Just an empty hallway. Still, the system logs the alert every single night, down to the second, 3:33 a.m. I mentioned it to my supervisor. He shrugged and told me not to worry about it unless I saw something. I wish I hadn't listened. On the 7th night, curiosity won. At 3:25 a.m., I rode the elevator to the 10th floor. The doors opened slowly, groaning like they hadn't been used in years. The hallway was dim, lit only by emergency lights that cast long, distorted shadows along the walls. The air was stale, heavy. It smelled like dust and something else I couldn't quite place. That's when I saw it. At the far end of the hallway, leaning against the wall, was a mirror. It was tall, nearly floor to ceiling, and wide enough to reflect the entire hallway. Its frame was old, ornate, and completely out of place in a modern office building. I knew immediately it hadn't been there before. I would have noticed it. Something about the mirror made my skin crawl. It looked clean, untouched by dust, unlike everything else in the building. I approached slowly, flashlight shaping in my hand. My reflection stared back at me. At first, everything seemed normal. I shifted my weight. The reflection followed. I raised my hand. The reflection raised its hand. Then I noticed it. The delay. Just a second, but enough. I lowered my hand. The reflection hesitated, then copied me. My heart began to pound. I leaned closer to the glass. The reflection did the same, late. Then it smiled. I did not. The smile was wrong, too wide, too slow. The hallway lights flickered. The air turned icy cold, raising goosebumps along my arms. I stepped back. The reflection stepped forward, while I stayed still. It pressed its palm against the glass from the inside. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop until I reached the elevator, slamming the button over and over until the doors finally closed. My reflection stared at me from the mirrored elevator walls, perfectly in sync. I reported the incident. Maintenance checked the 10th floor the next day. There was no mirror, no sign it had ever been there. They told me I imagined it, but the motion sensor never triggered again. Weeks passed. I tried to forget, but sometimes when I check the cameras late at night, I see a hallway that no longer exists, and at the end of it, a mirror, waiting. Some reflections don't show you who you are, they show you what's waiting to take your place. You've been watching Mr. Horror Man. If this true night shift horror story sent chills down your spine, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And remember, if your reflection smiles first, run.